Hey, there we go. All right, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining the River Resources Committee here this evening, Tuesday, August 30th, 2022. We just did a roll call, and we do have quorum, so thank you for those that are here with us tonight in the building, and also for those that have joined us virtually and by phone as well. I'm going to call the meeting to order at approximately 10 after 6 or 11 after 6. And thank you to Laura for taking the minutes tonight on behalf of Nate, who is with us virtually, but just not here to record the minutes in person. After our call to order here, we're just going to give everybody a moment. If you have any, item number 2, if you have any disclosure of pecuniary interest. I don't know, I think everyone's read through the agenda, and I assume that there is none. Number 3 on the agenda tonight, we're just going to adopt the minutes from the last meeting. Of course, due to the pandemic, it's been a while since this River Resources Committee has got together to meet. We did have some virtual opportunities during the pandemic, but there wasn't too many items that were referred to this particular committee during that time. So this is the first that we've actually had item come up for our review. So the last minutes are actually recorded from November 20th, 2019, and a copy of those minutes were circulated by Kevin prior to this meeting, so hopefully everyone has had a chance to take a look. It's actually included with the agenda tonight as well. Pages 3 to 4 are the minutes from the last meeting on November 20th. And assuming there's no questions, so I'm going to ask maybe for a motion or move to adopt the minutes as they were provided by Kathy. And
I'll make that motion.
Seconded by Chuck. Would you feel comfortable seconding the motion to adopt the minutes as circulated for November 20th, 2019?
I will circulate it, yes. I will second.
You'll second that. Thank you. All in favor?
I'm
Or any
second.
discussion? Okay, all in favor? Carried. Okay, so we've adopted the minutes from November 20th, 2019. Item number 4 on the agenda tonight is deputations and presentations. We don't necessarily have any listed at this part of the agenda, but we will hear from both Kevin with the municipal update under new business, and also from Officer Azero from the OPP under new business as well. And we'll also take a look at deputation at that time that was presented to the council. So we will look at a few things later on. We don't have anything particularly underneath number 4. Moving on to number 5, new business. We're going to refer to items under number 7 this evening as well for new business. And item number 6, subcommittee reports. There's no actual subcommittee reports that we have tonight. We have looked at doing subcommittees in the past for different topics on the Nottawasaga River, but being that this is the first meeting back post-pandemic, we just don't have anything specifically on the agenda for tonight. So moving right into new business, item number 7, and in more particular, item number 7.1 is the municipal update from Kevin Lalonde, Director of Public Works. So we will turn the floor over to Kevin to give us a review of a municipal update and talk about different items this evening.
There we go. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties again. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing really too detailed for a municipal update this year. As with previous years, we launched the barge early to mid-May, and I think we launched it this year around the 10th of May, and undertook a lot of the deadfall and debris removals before marking the River of the Mouth prior to the May long weekend. That's our focus, to get the mouth marked before the long weekend, and then we make our way upstream with the rest of the buoys to delineate that channel. A fair bit of outfall repairs and maintenance done this year for the storm sewers that lead into the river, just cleaning debris and what have you. And I think since May, we actively maintain the river channel between the mouth and Schoonertown twice a week. So we've been out over 30 times so far this year, and it's been relatively there haven't been too many concerning issues. Obviously, with the river levels and the lake levels much higher than they were from 2 years ago, it makes our operations a little easier relative to the alignment of the channel and the relocation of the buoys and the markers. We did have to relocate some of the markers at the mouth in mid-August following a major storm event where considerable sedimentation that had washed from the end of the spit there into the channel. So that was really the only major kind of relocation of the mouth that we had to do this year. Similarly, every time we are out, we do take depth soundings at the various stations throughout the river, and normally the mouth is the shallowest location, and we're seeing 5 to 8 feet and 10 feet in some cases. So it's a great depth, and it's much easier to manage the channel when we see the depths of that scale. So other than that, that generally summarizes certainly our update. And I do have an information presentation that I can get into once we get to the deputation discussion, but I thought I did invite our friends at the OPP here to provide some information statistics for us, maybe if they may, Mr. Chair.
I'll just ask the board, does anybody have any questions for Kevin first regarding the municipal update, or the sounded pretty standard for the items on your checklist every year that the barge and or the town does? I suppose maybe one quick question. You still have the municipal emergency services signs at each of the streets being maintained by the town for?
There actually are a few of them missing this year. We didn't reinstate all of them. That's certainly the one element that we need to order more signs for next season, but we try and do maintain them at the road allowance, and actually that's where we position the buoys as well. So when you come up to a buoy, it's generally in line with an unopened road allowance there. Most of them should be there, but some of them we find they go missing when we put them in, because it's some property owners don't want people to know that's an unopened road allowance. So there are some areas that we have a challenge with maintaining those signs. But and if I may, there is one more item. We did have to make some modifications to the docks at the 2nd Street boat launch, just given the fluctuation in the water, and the finger dock that we had parallel with the shore wall, we had to modify it just because the water levels were so high, and the anchoring system that we had designed a few years ago just wasn't effective. So we did have to put some modifications into that docking system, but I think it's certainly well used, and we've received great feedback on the upgrades.
Great, thank you. Okay, so that was the municipal update from Kevin Launder, Director of Public Works, under 7.1 of our agenda. And moving on, we're going to move to 7.2, which is an OPP update, and we have Officer Acero here tonight to provide an update.
Hi there, yeah, it's Constable Sarah with the OPP. My partner is also present with us, Constable Galarraga. We're, quick introduction, we're the full-time Marine unit for both the Purity West and Collingwood Joint Marine Unit. We work in conjunction with each other throughout the summer, so every shift we're working, we're out there. Our patrol zone covers from Thornbury all the way to Allenwood Beach, right at the tip of Tiny Township. So you can appreciate we have quite the geographical area to cover. Inclusive in that is the Nottawasaga River, which obviously it's no secret that poses its own challenges just on its own. So quick background, we do our best to cover all the emergency related calls between those zones, as well as do the appropriate enforcement, which we see as fit. I'll go back to the river. I think Christian can back me up on this and say that every day that we're out there, we always find time to enter the river at some point during the day for both patrol and enforcement duties. Everyone knows that river is only one of 3 rivers in Canada with a speed limit, so a vessel operator restriction regulation is on it, which poses its own challenges as that supersedes the Canada Shipping Act to regularly, vessels can't be traveling more than 10 kilometers an hour with 30 meters ashore. Obviously, that river is at its widest point, I think maybe 50, 60 meters, if that, and I'm being generous in saying that. So obviously, that vessel operator restriction regulation allows a vessel operator to get up to the speed of 50 kilometers an hour, which, if I'm going to be honest, that's an extreme hazard in that river from what we've seen. To date, our season isn't over just yet, but to date, our enforcement operations on that river, just speed-related charges, I think we're close to 50. I'm not going to go into details on how we obtain those speed readings and how we pull vessels over, because obviously it's a lot different than doing it on the road. It poses its own challenges, so I'm not going to disclose that publicly. However, we do it, and we do have ways and means, and we're out there enforcing the best we can to keep speeds down on that river, both by utilizing radar and just presence itself. I can say the fastest speed that we've gotten on that river was at the beginning of the season, Constable Galarraga and myself, 119 kilometers per hour. That is astronomical. That is traveling well above even the posted speed limit on any 4 Series highways. We were lucky we were out there that day to stop that vessel and charge that operator accordingly. But what I want people to understand is those are the type of operators that we're seeing and finding on that river. And it's just, in my humble opinion, it's just a matter of time before something absolutely detrimental happens with the confines of that river, whether it's between the hotspot between Main Street and the mouth, or if it's further west up the river towards the Schooner Bridge. We always see numerous kids on paddleboards, kayaks, canoes being towed by boats. It's the perfect storm on what's going to happen, and we, using every tool that we have available, try our best to limit that chance of happening to the best of our ability. I know there has been some discussion on putting up no wake signs. I can tell you firsthand that you can put up 100 no wake private buoys throughout that river. You might as well not spend your money. It's not going to do anything because we cannot enforce anything wake related in relation to the Canada Shipping Act. The reason being is, if you think about it, if you're operating a vessel, how are you not producing any wake? It's impossible, right? So there is no measurement under the Canada Shipping Act, no measurement charge to say how much wake you can throw. The only thing in relation to a wake charge that we could potentially lay is in regards to something in regards to a careless operation of a vessel. If we have the grounds, or if we firsthand see a vessel deliberately trying to tip a kayaker or a paddleboarder or something like that, but obviously that's rare. I've been a Marine officer here full-time for the last 3 years, and I've laid one charge in relation to that kind of thing. So that's not the problem. The problem, again, is the speed. I understand that there are some concerns from local citizens who do wish the speed limit to remain due to the fact on the time frame that it would take from some of them who live further upstream to reach the mouth of the river to go fishing, for example, out in Georgian Bay. I completely appreciate that. What I would like to expel on this committee and to the public is what this committee has to do is balance out the need of convenience and the need of safety. Where does that lie? Because we are out there every single shift, and we have seen some very, very close calls in relation to just a person even doing 45 or 50 on the river. that we can't take any enforcement action. But we all know vessels don't have brakes, right? You have to take into account other wakes going back and forth because the wakes bounce back and forth from the breakwalls. It's a lot harder to operate a vessel the faster you're going at the higher speed. That, I think, again, in my opinion, is the number one thing that this committee needs to look at going forward. Because, Kristen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would estimate from what we've seen, even just this summer with the COVID-19 restrictions being lifted, everyone out there, no holds bar, in the next year or two, I can see a complete detrimental accident happening on that river, and it's going to be the perfect storm. Kristen, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head there, Evan. I back up everything you say 100%. A lot of our education enforcement in regards to the river has been strictly speed enforcement. And I'm in the same boat as you, no pun intended. It's a matter of time. And the area in which we see or complete a lot of our enforcement is in a wider part of the river, which is close to the kind of the mouth. And there's been numerous close calls. I mean, we had a day in the summer where, all the rentals are out, the tiki bar is out. There's a group of sea doers on this Facebook group that came and set up canopies and tents all along the provincial park. They're out on the river. There's people on canoes and kayaks. There's children swimming. There's people launching their boats. And they're all right beside each other, and we're still getting people for going well over the speed limit. And like Evan said, it is completely different from speed-related duties on the highway. There are so many other factors that come into play while you're on water. And unlike the highway, to prevent people from speeding, the province of Ontario has made regulations for, impounding vehicles over a certain speed limit, suspending drivers. We don't have any of that. So people kind of have, not most people don't want to generalize, but a mindset of, oh, well, it's just a ticket. It's not going to go on my license. It's not going to affect my insurance. I'm not going to lose my boat. So there's nothing that kind of prevents them from continuing the offense other than a set fine. And different from the Highway Traffic Act, a set fine is more because it's from a federal statute. But again, we're just seeing a larger influx of people on certain sections of the river that, are going way too fast. And that's also due to inexperience. It's also due to new operators. COVID has shown that there's been a lot of new people buying new toys, going out there. But as things open up, as people stop traveling and continue to use their their hobbies and continue to go out on the water, speed is the major factor here, and it is honestly a matter of time. So everything Evan has just said, completely back up without a doubt.
Thank you very much for your comments this evening, and I'm going to open the floor to the board. If anybody has any questions, we'll pass it over to you.
Do you think reducing the speed limit, you're not down to 10, but if we even halved it, would that help?
Sorry, can you say that again, Kathy? I'm sorry.
If we reduce the speed limit to 25 or 20 rather than 10, because that would be such a huge blowback. I'm just trying to think of compromise. And then we could just worry about Big Wake.
Yeah,
People plowing, which is,
and you hit
yeah.
the nail on the head. Like the thing is, it's kind of the physics of it is kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
The faster you're going, the less water
Yeah.
you're displacing,
but
therefore
we
the less
know,
weight you have.
we
However,
know most of the people don't know how to operate their boat anyways.
not-
so
yeah, I
slower is
wouldn't-
better.
yeah, I wouldn't generalize most people. Like there's a lot of experienced boaters out
Yes.
there,
Yeah.
hands down. However, they're mostly not the people we're worried about. It's
Exactly.
it's the inexperienced ones.
Yep.
No fault of their own.
Yep.
They have to learn. However, not at such high speeds within such a small confine.
And on such powerful machines.
100%.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, generally, yeah, so bringing it down to 10 kilometers an hour, sure, that's essentially quote unquote putting, right?
Mm-hmm.
That would, from the Schooner Bridge to the mouth of the river, that will take you about half hour, 35 minutes, give or take.
Oh, exactly,
Right? as we all know. Bringing it down to the 2025 mark, you're gonna have the plowing, right? And you're gonna have the big, like, much larger wakes tossing around the parked vessels along the river and on the cottages, right? So there's really no getting away from that,
Yeah. I'm
unfortunately,
just trying to
right?
think of a compromise.
100%. No,
Safety over
100%.
damage, I don't know.
And I know I've spoken with a member prior to this as well, and the option was made with, okay, the hot spot is from the main street to the mouth of the river. We all know that. There's still problems further upstream, but that's the main portion. Let's try to just reduce it there and keep the speed limit on the rest of it. What you're gonna do is you're just gonna push all those people back to west, right?
Yeah.
West of the Main Street Bridge. So that's not really gonna solve anything in my opinion.
And then you have to be able to enforce it too.
100%.
You don't have the manpower.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Chuck, did you have any questions, or?
I was wondering, what would you recommend for the mouth of the river
In regards to,
to speed limit?
well, at the mouth of the river, there is no speed limit going out into the bay.
Right.
Right, so if you get into the bay, there's no speed limit on the water with exception to being within 10 meters of shore. Or sorry, my correction, within 30 meters of shore. You can only be going 10 kilometers an hour. So as soon as you're coming out of those buoys, right at the mouth, there's nothing that says you can't open it right up and head right out into the bay. Yeah. If you're out of that 30-meter from shore range, as long as you're not doing anything dangerous, like coming close to another vessel or anything like that, I'm just using the general aspect of saying there's no one out there, you can open it right up full throttle and have fun.
But in the channel, can you go fast in the mouth of the river?
Sorry, I don't understand the question,
The
sir.
reason I'm asking the question is because sometimes the mother river is low, and a lot of people with big boats,
Yep,
they gotta have to plane, or else they're
Yep.
gonna hit the
Yep.
bottom.
yep.
So to plane, you gotta go X amount of speed, right?
I understand that. So again, and that's a discretion piece of it as well, right? I understand right at the mouth, like right at the point, I understand that's a very shallow point. We appreciate that, right? So again, there's discretion on that, right? If you're going out there, you're clearly heading out into the bay, right?
Correct.
Or vice versa. If you're coming in on plane, then you're coming off plane maybe shortly after that. Again, that's a discretion piece, right? So again, that's not a black and white situation. That's something we obviously would use discretion on because we're aware that it's extremely shallow in that area.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
We have two more board members with us tonight. One's virtual, Wesley, and we have Nate on the phone. So I just wanted to check, Wesley, did you have any questions for the OPP this evening?
No, it's fine. I was listening to the OPP and I fully agree that, the speed has to be limited because that's a critical factor and the speed generates the wake and, the higher the speed, the more the wake, and it'll be generally at the bridge, you'll always have, if there's a big wake, there's a backlash from the foundation of cement, whatever. So you'll have a lot of upset with any of these canoeing or any small boats that are around the area. So I do agree with the OPP on that. The speed.
Okay, thank you. And Nate on the phone, I don't know, I just thought I would give you a moment if you have any questions as well. I think he's okay. Okay, thank you very much. And just for the we've definitely listened to all of your comments this evening, and this is being recorded so we can actually go over it a couple times as well. And I'm sure we'll hear from members of the public following your report as well. So thank you very much for your time coming in tonight.
100%. Thank you for having us, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
So next up, we've got Kevin, and Kevin Lalonde, Director of Public Works, is going to give us an overview of a deputation to the coordinated committee that was presented on July 21st, 2022, and a presentation that was presented by one of our local businesses, Shaka Wasaga. So I'll pass the floor over to Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I wasn't necessarily going to overview the deputation. I think we had circulated that to committee members, and they certainly reviewed that and can appreciate it. What I did want to share was really some background on the speeds on the river, and actually a lot of the information that Evan had just mentioned in terms of the vessel operation restriction regulations. So I wanted to just get into a little bit of background in terms of, you know, who's responsible, because a lot of people think it's the municipality when it's the federal government, right? So it's really just providing some context to where we are today, and, you know, if there, you know, some discussion around what avenues we have as a municipality to pursue a regulation change if deemed appropriate. So it was really just around that, Mr. Chair. So as Evan had indicated earlier, the federal government has exclusive legislative authority over navigation in all Canadian rivers. And the Canada Shipping Act governs shipping and navigation in the waters, and the act is specific to, has conditions specific to pleasure craft operation. And it's the Minister of Transport who is responsible for the administration of the act. And the one regulations under this act that affects pleasure crafts is the Vessel Operation Restriction Regulations, the VORR. And under this regulation, any level of government, including municipal, can ask the federal government to restrict the use of commercial or recreational vessels on any Canadian waters to promote safety, protect the environment, or look out for public interest. These restrictions may prohibit all boats, limit engine power, type of propulsion, impose speed limits, restrict towing, prohibit sporting recreational use, and different activities. Now, we can also request restrictions recommending they apply at certain times of the day, week, or month, or year, and they can also target a specific type of craft on the waterway or part of it. Interestingly enough, under the VORR, the Nottawasaga River is certainly defined, as Evan did say, as a posted 50 maximum speed on the river. And when you set out the specific coordinates in terms of the limits of the posted 50, it is actually back as far as Jack's Lake. So obviously you cannot get to Jack's Lake by boat going 50 up the river, but the limits of the posted speed along the Nottawasaga extends well beyond Schoonertown Bridge. And getting into the process for applying for a VORR may take over a year. Now, the process to apply for a vehicle operation restriction regulation it's the same process to apply for an amendment to an existing regulation. So an amendment to the existing posted 50, it's the same process. And there's a fairly comprehensive process that you need to follow, and you need to have it first vetted by the Regional Office of Boat Safety. And they require that first submission by the middle of July in any given year, so that if there's information missing, they can confirm and go back and get all the final details established prior to September 15th, to which they present that to the Transport Canada and the Minister for approval. Often the full process for regulation or change in regulation takes up to 2 years, and Transport Canada, as I indicated earlier, they do have a guide which is very technical in nature, and I'll share that with committee in terms of how the process works for applying for a VORR or an amendment to any current regulations that exist. There's a number of items we must do beforehand to support the application and to support the process. We need to clearly explain the problem and contributing causes. Identify and describe all the alternative options we considered and tried. Document and summarize your public consultations. In some cases, the application may trigger a duty to consult Indigenous peoples. And throughout the process, and we've engaged the Office of Boat Safety a couple of times over the last probably 4 or 5 years, and they're certainly helpful, and they're willing to help with facilitating this process. We need to document and summarize impact assessments and cost-benefit analysis of the regulatory intervention. Identify and describe the body of water, obviously the Nottawasaga River, that we want reconsidered if we do go that route. Identify and describe ways to achieve compliance. Describe how you will raise awareness about the new restrictions among water users. And how will we evaluate the effectiveness of the change in regulation? So it's a very detailed process, and in fact, it's almost similar to the planning process we follow for municipal projects, the environmental assessment process, where there's public consultations, you identify the problem, you present the alternatives you considered, and demonstrate how you got to the preferred solution. So there are many reasons that a community may consider applying for VOR: concern over recreational boating behavior, the effects of general safety and protection of the environment, for example. But the one thing is clear through the documentation is that Transport Canada looks at these regulations and amendments as a last resort, and they're not easy to get. It's their view that stakeholders working together can often find a more timely, effective, and affordable solution. In terms of alternatives, they want you to explore first consultations. Two key components of resolving waterway concerns and conflicts are to identify the problem and hold proper consultations, understand the root cause, not just the symptoms. The main elements of the consultation are trying and evaluating different alternatives. So exploring alternatives and evaluating the results to see if they're effective or not. Many alternatives can achieve the same result as a restriction regulation without going through the time-consuming and sometimes costly regulatory process. When you get into non-regulatory alternatives, some can be as simple as agreeing to respect each other's rights, to operate in a courteous manner, and I think sometimes that's a challenge when you have new operators or individuals that perhaps aren't familiar with the code of conduct, we'll say. So you try and increase public awareness and inform them, whether it's through posters, signage, radio ads, and different awareness activities. Posting signs is one of the most common forms of non-regulatory options. And they could be anything from whether it's please reduce speed or narrow channel ahead caution, please reduce your wake or hazardous near shore. You need to be mindful of the situation before what signs apply, but there are regulations too in terms of how and what signs we can use, and we do have details around that and the regulations to support that. Private buoys, we do have watch your wake buoys. We did acquire, I think, a dozen of them a few years ago, just when the water levels were so high because of the damage the wake was causing. We actually didn't put them out this year, but we do have wake buoys to help perhaps remind boaters and vessel operators to be mindful of their wake. But again, I think that alone isn't the solution. It's increasing the education and awareness at the same time. And Evan spoke to this earlier in terms of, another option is designated enforcement agencies to enforce existing acts and regulations. And he spoke briefly to the small vessel regulations, which states that no person shall operate a small vessel in a careless manner or without reasonable consideration for other persons. That allows them to issue tickets when there is, a no wake enforcement. As I said earlier, there is the opportunity to consult further with the Ontario or the Office of Safe Boating should this be under consideration by the committee. They just suggest that you consult with them early on in the process, so you're not going in one direction when there's some preliminary steps and prerequisite steps you should follow before you go through a full application for regulation change. And that was just some of the summary that I wanted to share with committee in terms of the background, and there's lots of information out there, and there is a process that is fairly technical, but it can be followed should a speed limit adjustment be considered. And that was all I had today, Jason.
Thank you. Once again, I'm going to open the floor for any questions that someone might have for Kevin. Kathy?
I think it's clear that pursuing a speed limit reduction is we're not ready to do that. We have to do our education and maybe put our private buoys out in and still consider pursuing that, but it's going to be years before we can get any results from that, so we need to explore education and signage.
Kevin, just a question for you. You mentioned that, so the part of the VOR process, they mentioned seek advice and guidance from the Regional Transport Canada Marine Safety and Security Office, long name for an office. And you mentioned, I think, that you have consulted with them a couple times in the past?
We have. This came up a couple of years ago. Sorry, we have consulted with the Office of Safe Boating, the Ontario region, and they were the ones that informed us of the process and what avenues we need to take if we were to consider a request for an amendment to the regulations. So we still have that contact, and actually Evan also has another contact with the Office of Safe Boating that we can leverage for input and advice on safe boating matters, not necessarily just the speed, but river safety and waterway safety. So we do have that resource available to us.
Was there any reports given at the time, or just recommendations from that safety office that would lead us into more formally making a recommendation to go through the actual VORR process, or was it informal at the time?
No, it was email correspondence, relatively informal, but she had indicated generally, you know, they prefer the non-regulatory route. And what have you attempted? What have you tried? How have you engaged the community, right?
Right.
And what measures have you implemented along the river to help curb, whether it's speeding or wake or unsafe practices? So I think if you were to go down the regulation process, or to change or to not deregulate, but to modify the existing regulations, you'd certainly need to demonstrate that you have done public consultation, engagement, awareness. Yeah, we put the buoys out there, we've created the pamphlet, but I think a comprehensive strategy needs to be established so we can kind of check that off. Should we pursue the regulation change? I don't know how much effort we've put in. I know we've put in effort, but we haven't documented that effort,
Right.
and we haven't, we haven't really engaged the community as much as perhaps is warranted to proceed with the regulation change from the outset. But again, their office can guide us through that process as well and provide some recommendations prior to simply applying for a
Right.
change.
Chuck, did you have any questions for Kevin?
The only thing I have to say is, if we do reduce the speed, is that gonna hurt the town economy by not bringing boaters in the town?
Well, I don't know the answer to that, but I think you would certainly engage your business community that you have right now and get their feedback in terms of whether or not they see an adverse impact because of reducing the posted speed. I think you'll still, I don't know, it's a question for the businesses along the river and whether or not they'll see any impact, but certainly a good question, and I don't necessarily have the answer to that.
Just to our members that are with us today virtually, Wesley or Nate, do you have any questions for Kevin regarding the presentation and the information he's provided regarding the process for a municipality to look at and or change or amend the speed limit as it is today on the river?
No, I fully agree. I listened to Kevin, and he's quite right on what he is saying. He's got his information okay. I'm wondering whether is there any way in which, like how Collingwood has a slipways, is there any possibility of having slipways so that people will be able to launch their boats other than in the river? Because I think maybe it's possible. Is that the cause that people have to launch it in the river, or they can launch it outside? Or is it because most people are most boat owners are on the river? What is the main reason of, I'm just wondering whether how we can reduce the vessels plying on the river,
Right.
if that is the cause that so many vessels are trying to exit and causing speeds like these.
Yeah, I think, so maybe just to speak to your, or comment is, there, it is definitely a mixed use on the river, and some of it is local residents, some of it is tourism. Of course, it's a recreational river, so we have people that fish and take part in various towed water sports, and so it is a combination of people on the river. There's definitely a difference in use during midweek versus the weekend. Of course, the weekend in our area in general and on the river is busier. And what's unique to the river for boating, as opposed to the roads and the municipality itself, is an extra weather element, which is wind. So I think that you might have a nice, warm, sunny day, but if we have strong northwesterly winds, there's not a lot of boats that are out in the wave and in the chop in Georgian Bay itself or Nottawasaga Bay, so it tends to be thicker or a busier boat traffic in the river on those windy days. In particular, Saturday, Sunday, or long weekend with a lot of wind in the bay, there is an increased traffic in the river, so it's difficult to find space for the amount of people that our area attracts, both from tourism and the growing population of the residents, I think. So it is a mixed use for sure.
And then it's courtesy, I think, for all users to be a little courteous to the other users, and that's the only other alternative, because people have to be more courteous to others, because that's the only other alternative if we have this situation.
Yeah, and Kevin had referenced just code of ethics and some of the guiding principles that are recommended to boaters in general that we need to put that into each. It's definitely comes down to each operator and that they're acting responsibly or unfortunately sometimes irresponsibly, which COPP has updated us tonight that there's unfortunately those out there as well. Nate, did you have any questions on the phone here? Okay, seeing that there's none from Nate. I had one question. I had two questions. I had a question for the OPP, and of course I asked everybody if they had questions and forgot to ask my own question, but it goes back to, of course, traffic on the weekend versus the midweek. So I'd meant to ask them, they referenced in general just how many charges they've laid this year. Not surprised that there was some for speeding. Surprised a little that I think he said he only laid one for reckless driving, because I feel like there is probably the odd operator out there that stands out. He referenced people that are canoeing, kayaking, or paddleboarding, and then you've got a guy, running up through the pack without, being courteous to those other operators. So surprised there isn't more of actually the reckless one. It would be great too. Center in, focus on those few in the crowd. In Kevin's report there, the very first page, under just some general information about the vessel operation restriction regulation process, the BORR, it says restrictions can apply at all times or be specific to certain times of the day, week, month, or year. They can also be targeted to a particular type or types of craft on a waterway or part of it. That's actually interesting there, because it could be that if we knew if the majority of those charges laid are on the weekends, perhaps there's something to be reviewed there regarding if there was a change, would it be mainly applicable for the weekends, or would it be 7 days of the week kind of thing? So that might be an idea to look at.
Certainly something to explore with the Office of Safe Boating. The one challenge is certainly enforcement, and when, if you're coming on Monday, you can go 50, or if you're coming on a Saturday and you can only go 10, it's very difficult for kind of seasonal or periodic restrictions. In my opinion, I think they'll find it that much harder to get compliance, because people will claim ignorance rather than just no wake or low speed limits. But something that was interesting to me as well, but it's certainly something we can have more discussion on and certainly speak with the OPP, because this is going to come down to enforcement, right? And it's really the enforcement that will help solve the issues that we do have. And so that would be certainly a question for them as well, and whether or not, if there was an opportunity to have a seasonal or a different time restricted reduced speed zones. Is that something that they would support, or what? I think it's worth having the discussion around.
I think for just maybe the last item of discussion for this is just for a recap and or summary. So we're looking at the, prior to this meeting, Kevin had sent out a link for us to all watch the deputation that was made to the Coordinating Committee on July 1st, 2022, and assuming everybody has watched that video and or read through the slides, and just to remind everybody of the process. So this was an item that was referred to the River Resources Committee on behalf of the Municipal Council, and I expect that next steps would be for us, of course, to, after having discussed and reviewed all that we have tonight, would be to get back to a response, formal response to the council of what the River Resources Committee's recommendation is to the council for next steps. I'd like to open the floor to maybe some conversation of what our formal response might be at this time, and or any recommendations, perhaps even from Kevin from Public Works, having reviewed the process and worked with the safety office before. I'm going to open the floor to any conversation for our response to the council.
Yeah, certainly, and you know, a recommendation doesn't necessarily have to come today either. You know, we don't have a full team of committee members today, but if there's further information or more clarity, certainly anyone would like to have around any of the issues, I can dig up a little more information and bring that back. But you know, it is, you know, up to committee to review and make a recommendation. But if you need more information, we can take the time we need.
I would like to work in conjunction with the Office of Safe Boating and work on an education campaign with more signage and buoys, and work with the businesses on the water, like the Sea-Doo rentals, for them to have the same signage at their docks. I'm more visual than a pamphlet that nobody's going to read. I think that's a good start, and then we can explore the other aspects of dealing with the VOR. But in the meantime, I think we need to step up our education, and we do have the buoys. I know every little bit helps.
Kevin, in your report, the process was referenced as submissions. So just circling back to some requests made in the presentation by Shaka Wasega, they're requesting a no-wake zone and/or speed limit to be reviewed for a particular area of the river. But I think we have confirmed that the process for that, of course, is not municipal. It's not the county or province, but it is federal under Transport Canada and the Shipping Act. And we've now confirmed tonight the process is actually submission before July 15th in any one calendar year, and the review would be in September. So I think we've missed that deadline for this year. So taking that into account, and I think that from what I gather from the conversation here tonight, more information not only for this committee but also for the community feedback. Maybe it is best for a second meeting of the River Resource Committee. Hopefully would have higher attendance, and we could take a look at what our formal response might be to council, and we can actually, one question for Kevin, with the process for the public, does the municipality assume has the resources that if we were to ask for feedback from the public, what would that, do you know what that might look like, or how that would be administered?
Like, there's different methods to do that, and one, the obvious being just an online survey, or you know, the committee perhaps developing a list of questions to truly understand the users and what some of the issues or concerns are. Certainly we have those from the operator that made the deputation, but there may be others along the river that we need to truly understand from other operators, pro and con. Some may you know, appreciate the speed limit for different reasons, but I think, you know, the survey process, online survey, I think we can probably work with our communications officer to develop a survey, and that's a great way. We can also put something in the paper, social media, to seek written feedback if that's easier, but I think we can collectively come up with a strategy, and we'll, from a survey perspective, we can put the resources together to help facilitate that.
Chuck, do you have anything to add at this point, or Wesley or Nate?
No, I don't have anything to say at this moment.
I find it very interesting, and I really think that we really have to do our homework before we go ahead and make any decisions. And I really like to see some more members of this club to join us, because I don't think we should just do it right away. And that's my opinion. We still need to do some more thinking. It's an eye-opener, no question about it, and I cannot deny that. I live in the river and I see some crazy stuff in the river. However, but not everybody's crazy. There is people there. They're very careful, and they know what they're doing. So I really think that me as an owner on the river, I really, before I make a decision, we really have to do some more homework. Thank you.
Kathy?
Yeah, one more. I've sort of divided it into two items: pursuing or looking into lowering the speed limit. I think that's one big project that is a years-long thing, and we need to do more research on that. But I want to look at what we can do in the meantime, and that's where I'm with the education and more signage. And I think that's something we can get together over the winter for the spring. And still, so I think I have it divided into two different things. So in the meantime, how do we help the people on the river while we are exploring this process with Transport Canada?
Kevin, not to put work on the work barge, but does it happen to be going out anytime in the near future before the long weekend or anything like that, or the barge itself, the municipal barge?
Yeah, it's usually out twice a week, so it definitely does go out.
You confirm that we did purchase some of the, again, non-regulatory options are, of course, the markers, and one of them is please reduce your wake, and I believe the municipality did purchase a couple of those in recent
Yeah.
years. Is it possible that maybe some of those could be put out even before the long weekend, or are we too close to that deadline right now?
Unlikely before the long weekend, given
Right.
it's Tuesday. And we do have a dozen of them out, but you know, we're kind of at the end of the season right now too, right? We're into September. Is there value with putting a half a dozen of them out in September?
Right.
If that's the direction, we can certainly do our best to get them out, but I don't think we'll have the resource or the capacity to put them out before Friday.
Yeah, sure. No, it's understandable. I just thought I would check.
But we do have, I think we have 12 of them.
Add that are out right now? Or just in the yard right
Yeah.
now? Okay.
But the other challenge is I don't know how many anchors we have. Like it's a concrete weighted
Right.
anchor that we need to anchor them with, so I
Right.
think they're all used.
Laura, you had a comment?
Sorry, through you, Chair. I was just going to add that in the meantime, given the town's opportunity to have multiple social media venues, the communications officer, in conjunction with Kevin or with the committee, can immediately post some Facebook updates or Twitter updates to get out there, perhaps relating to some of the OPP content in their presentation today and some of what Kevin's noted. Maybe noting, look for these signs that we do have posted, or take into consideration your neighbors on the river, or however that works for you guys. Just an option to something we can do right away.
Excellent, thank you.
Just if I may, on the
sure,
signage,
yeah, of course.
I think an audit of the sign by committee is also a good idea, and then we can look at, well, okay, what do we have and how do we want to enhance that, or do we want to go in a different direction that perhaps is a little more visual, acceptable, or simpler to follow. And then throughout the course of the next few months, we can create a design so we have, or possibly purchase some. We do have a signage budget for the river as well. And there may be opportunity if we have the time to establish even a sign standard that we want to have at the boat launches. That's something we could do also and prepare for, you know, this winter, so we have them ready to go first thing in the spring.
I think when we created our Safe and Smart Boating Guide, it was not pre-social media, but before I think the town has the following that it does now. So for reference, for the boating guide, this is a pamphlet that this committee has completed in the past that is still valid today, with a lot of great safety reminders, and for the operator also safety emergency numbers, and it's just a helpful guide for safe boating here on the Nottawasaga River. We do have this in a PDF format, so I'll recommend that this committee perhaps gets this over to the municipality to hopefully share in the social media to the public in the very near future, and that could help perhaps be a great first step for us as we go towards furthering our education. Looking ahead, I expect, just recapping and summarizing the conversation that we've had tonight, the content we reviewed, and of course reading over the VOR process myself, it does say that it says your duties, and this is in reference to a municipality. It says as a local authority, you should use the VOR process only as a last resort for solving problems. Before applying for a vessel operation restriction, number one, work with the interested parties to find timely, effective, and affordable solutions. And number two, seek advice and guidance from the Regional Transport Canada Marine Safety and Security Office. So I think that if we go from the recommendations from the report itself, it sounds like the logical next step is for the municipality to review with that Marine Safety and Security Office, for them to perhaps review our situation. And I read further about their process, and I believe they do take feedback, so we could directly connect them with the OPP, with residents on the river, with some of the businesses on the river, with this committee itself. Perhaps a combination of all of everybody coming together would be able to come out with a recommendation for this not only this committee, but for the council this fall, so that if there is changes, big changes that would come in future years, we could work within the deadlines that we now are aware of from Kevin's report, perhaps as a suggestion.
If I may, I think the survey will also help inform that, to get the input, but when you approach the VOR process and the federal government, you need to really analyze the current situation, and some of the questions they'll ask, obviously the who, what, when, where, why, and how. Who are the people involved? Who needs to be informed? What is the issue? When did the problem arise? Where did the problem occur? What changed recently? What is new? How does the problem occur? Does the problem occur constantly or just occasionally? And so you have to go through, it's a fairly comprehensive process that will take some time, so we're appropriately describing what's happening on the river, so they have a better understanding of our request if we proceed that way.
So I think what I'll ask from the committee itself, for all of its members, and is that perhaps we put our thinking caps on of what those questions will be, and I could reach out to the board just in just working emails and feedback, where we can collectively compile a list of appropriate questions that we can work with the municipality to get out a survey and obtain that public feedback again in the near future, so that we can make the appropriate next steps. And I'll probably recommend that at the next meeting we can review the results of a survey with the feedback from the residents on the river and the operators and tourists that come and use the Nottawasaga River, and together with perhaps a more in-depth look of what that safety or communication and the process would be with the Regional Transport Canada Marine Safety and Security Office in particular. I think those would most likely be our logical next steps. Is there any further comments regarding item 7.3 here and Kevin's report this evening? Okay, and moving on then, our next item, one of our last items here is number 7.4. It's an application form, public appointment to boards and committees. And I'll perhaps pass this over to Laura.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the committee members. So this item is just what we kind of put on towards the end of the meetings of all the terms of council. So obviously, you as a committee were appointed for the 2018-22 term. That term is coming to an end. Now is the application process. So all members obviously are able to reapply for appointment if they're interested in staying on the committee, as well as members of the public. But this is just your opportunity to note that time frame and when you're ready to submit those applications to the clerk's department.
Excellent, thank you very much. Okay, item number 8, items for future meetings. I think we've already discussed that we would like to add a further review of the VORR process, the Vessel Operation Restriction Regulations, and a further review of the regional, or what the municipal's review would look like with the Regional Transport Canada Marine Safety and Security Office. So I think those would be items for the next meeting, and also reviewing the results from a survey with the public, and then more formally responding back to council so that we can get back to the business that had made the deputation to the council this summer. Next meeting, in the past, we've had the call of the chair. Seeing that I don't have a calendar in front of me right now, and knowing everyone's schedules, if it's okay, unless Kevin, you want to throw a date out there, we could perhaps say at the call of the chair, and I could maybe communicate with the committee in the coming week, just to try to get a date that maybe might work for where we have a good attendance at the next meeting, perhaps.
Yeah, I would, at this stage, I would suggest call the chair, and then we can kind of circulate emails to confirm availability. Just to clarify, Laura, the term of this council and the term of this committee, is it December, or is it November, mid-November?
Through you, Chair, the term of this committee, the inaugural of new council is November 15th, so technically this committee ends with the kind of the election date of October 24th. So you can meet up to that period. That would still give you even a potential of 2 more meetings for sure if you wanted one September, one October, but as long as it's before the 24th.
And does the municipality by chance have software that could be sent out to a committee, and it gives you 3 or 4 different dates, and then they select those, and then the one that comes back with the most results?
Yes, so we can do, there's actually, I think there's a feature built in the Outlook that we can do that, so we can show, if Kevin's not aware of it, we can show him, and then we can get a couple of dates that work best for everybody, absolutely.
So I could perhaps help with a Google survey too. I can create one real quick, just with a few dates, and send you the link, and we can send it out to the board. Then again, best chances to get a good attendance for the next meeting. If there's nothing further, item number 10, we will adjourn at, looks like 7:15, just over an hour, not bad timing. Thank you everybody for attending tonight. Thank you to the OPP who were here and presented. And I look forward to meeting with everybody again, hopefully with as many as we can in person. And we'll cover a little bit more of these same topics and move ahead accordingly. Thank you.